there's that natural link, I think, between personal wellness and then broader ecosystem wellness. So I definitely see those two tying in together. And when it comes to those goals, whether it's sustainability or nutrition, Taco Bell is part of a broader group with the Yum group. Do those goals typically come from the larger parent organization and trickle through the different brands, or do you see more grassroots creation of those goals that all fit into a bigger piece of the pie?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, but I would say Yum is a parent company. They are the publicly traded company, so they are responsible for reporting on progress, whether it's public disclosures that are either mandated or voluntary. And so, as such, Yum at the center really manages the strategy, the framework, and the reporting on behalf of all of the brands. And so there's, just to be clear of the brands, there's Taco Bell, KFC, Pizza Hut, Habit Burger. Habit Burger joined our organization in early of 2020. So they're a little bit newer to the game, but yeah. And so basically all of the reporting goes into Yum. They aggregate the data and report out on behalf of all of us. But when it comes to executing, the brands are really the ones who have to execute the work against the strategy in a way that's brand specific. So they have options for making brand specific goals. So Taco Bell, we've done that ourselves where we do what Yum has set, but then there may be brand specific things that we want to go and do ourselves because either it's customer centric focus or stakeholder centric focus that we just feel is important for us to work on. Then we'll go ahead and set that goal and work on that. But I'll also say, my role is probably unique within Taco Bell, even amongst the brands. And then we have other roles that are also very unique and different. So it's structurally, we're set up slightly different across the brands as well. But we're all executing against a strategy that makes sense.
I feel it's almost like the approach you want to take for sustainability as well, right? Sometimes those overnight changes can feel really overwhelming, even internally with associates. Whereas if you do something gradually, it can be more of that natural transition. I know one of the initiatives that you're focused on is that of packaging. Could you walk us through what that journey has looked like over the years and where you are today, 2024, in terms of maybe your stealth packaging updates?
Yeah, packaging is an interesting one too. And I will say again, that's something I had to learn on the job. And, growing up and just being a food scientist and working in food, I have a ton of pictures of food on my phone. And I would not believe how excited I get over a trash can for packaging and how many pictures I have on my phone now, which is pretty funny. So the journey with packaging for Taco Bell, back in 2020, we announced our own packaging goals. So we announced very specific things that we were seeking out to accomplish. And KFC did as well. But then we realized, as a big global brand, across Yum brands, it's probably better that we all start working on the same things, the same efforts. And so all of the brands work together to essentially harmonize our packaging goals collectively so that we have one set of packaging commitments that we're all working towards. So now there's a robust packaging policy online for those who want to dig into the details. But essentially what we're doing is we're shifting our consumer-facing packaging to be recyclable, compostable, or reusable. We're getting rid of those intentionally added chemicals of concern like PFAS, BPA, and phthalates, right? And then we're supporting recovery and recycling systems, whether that's in restaurant or otherwise, and a whole lot of other things. But in essence, we're focusing on the consumer-facing packaging. So for us, we've already made quite a lot of effort, and without having to shout at the rooftops, people will notice a difference with us. So we had white non-recyclable wraps before, and now we have this craft brown recyclable paper wraps. So that's a pretty noticeable difference. We didn't have to say anything really because you could just tell by looking at it. And then we updated the branding on it as well, just to give it a new look and feel. And so we still have a lot more work to do. We were able to approach roughly half of our packaging suite, and we have the rest that we have yet to solve. And so I have a couple packaging engineers on my team, and we're working really hard to find out what those solutions will be. It's not an easy place to operate in when you're a national brand and you're up against local state laws that are all competing against each other, more or less. And then additionally, you're up against local and state infrastructure, right? What will they accept? What can they accept? What can they process? So it's an interesting space. I actually really love it. But we all have goals that are being realized at the end of next year. So we'll be reporting on that in 2026.
It's exciting and definitely very complex as well. I know packaging is part of waste management, so you touched on that as well, but I'm sure there are other areas that you have to think of with your team. Waste management is not just at the restaurants too. I'm sure you also have to think end of life of your products, of ending up in people's homes if they do takeout. So what are other waste management considerations that you have to think about?
Yeah, I mean, you said it beautifully, because the packaging is a critical component to waste management, because how we design our packaging, it should fit into a recycling stream. But then, like I mentioned, we're up against local state infrastructure. So we're looking at widely recyclable, right? What's considered widely recyclable is 60% or more that could be recovered at a material recycling facility. But then you think about our business, we're a fast food business. We're predominantly drive-through and takeaway. So people aren't really dining in as much as they used to, especially after COVID. And so they're taking their food home, or they're taking their food elsewhere. So now you're up against, community infrastructure. So will our consumers have access to recycling at home? But again, if we're designing our packaging to be recyclable or compostable, and it's widely recyclable, that piece will be there. So for us, we've done a few things with waste management, right? All of our company restaurants we have almost 8,000 restaurants in the US. And of that 8,000, we have roughly 500 company restaurants. So all of our company restaurants have what we call front of house, or in the dining center or in the dining area, recycling streams. And you have trash, mixed recycling, composting, so that customers have an opportunity to have access to recycling in our restaurants. So that's one way that we're doing our part to give them access. We're also partnering with some of our franchisees in different states to pilot waste diversion efforts, whether that's back of house with team members, because that's where the majority of waste is generated in our restaurants, and then also front of house. And what we're realizing is that education is critical to the success of proper waste management and diversion, right? Because people are so used to just throwing things away. They're just used to putting it in the trash, right? When you look at your communities, you don't always see 3 streams, you just see 1 stream. And so there's an educational effort that has to take place across the industry to help inform people and customers across the board that, hey, you have to do something with this, and it needs to be different. So we're looking at things like a call to action on packaging. We haven't quite got there yet. We're trying to find the right message, but I'm seeing other retailers doing this too, where it's like, recycle me, compost me. It's like do something with me, So those are things we're looking at to grab people's attention, to let them know that, hey, you need to do something different. I look and feel different, and also you need to put me in a different bin.
Another stakeholder in all of that is definitely our suppliers. And I'm sure Taco Bell has a very important, large value chain. How do you get your suppliers on board? Is that an education piece, or is it a compliance piece? It's definitely more and more important. I think we're seeing how we're all connected. Even if you just purely think of emissions, we now know through scope 1, 2, and 3 how interconnected we are. What has that journey looked like for you in getting your suppliers on board as well?
We have great partnerships with our suppliers. So whenever we come to them with a hard ask, which I've been coming to them for over 12 years with, whether it's nutrition or now sustainability related, I think we've set the precedence with them that, we like to go big and bold, and we like to be first when it comes to Taco Bell. So I think they expect us to challenge them and push them in a way that is uncomfortable. So when we come to them with sustainability initiatives, they want to partner with us. And, we have great initiatives that we work on with them, where they're willing to put forth money and funding and co-funding research or pilot efforts to work and expand and enhance upon sustainability. And then also internally, we build policies that support our sustainability efforts, but we bring them along on the journey, and we have high touch engagements with them. So we're not just telling them what to do. They feel like they're a part of the journey. And I think that's super important, is to have great relationships, being super transparent, bringing them along on not just this one thing, but how does that fit across the broader organizational strategy? Where does this fit in? How do they fit in? How can they help support us along the way? But quite frankly, they all have to work on it too. So it's not like it's just us pushing this agenda. They all have to set, not all of them, but a lot of people and our suppliers are setting science-based target goals and initiatives, and they're all they're reporting on scope 1 through 3 as well. So they're not alone, and they're not exempt from this effort. So it's a little bit of, we're all doing it together, and it's a concerted effort.
I think that's a great inclusive approach. And you're absolutely right that the more we can do it and kind of guide each other along the way, I think that's fantastic. And Taco Bell had a really important announcement last year linked to more kind of the regenerative conservation angle and a program being put in place. Can you speak to that announcement from last year?
Yeah, and honestly, that's a great example of a partnership with one of our suppliers. So I'm glad you brought that up, because we teamed up with one of our key beef suppliers, Cargill, and NIFWIF, my new favorite acronym, of the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And what we're doing is we're putting together funding over 4 years to boost sustainable farming practices, to support regenerative ranching practices across. We're targeting a region in the western states and in the Rocky Mountains, but this effort really is aiming to improve land and water quality, increasing biodiversity, cutting carbon emissions, all while also helping ranchers and preserving the grasslands. So this one in particular, I'm super excited about, because one, it's very new for Taco Bell. We've never done something like this. 2, I actually get to go out there to Colorado next week to see how some of the pilots are going. And we're starting to gather and collect data. So it's pretty early on. We don't have a lot to report or share yet, but the pilots are in place and they're taking action. We're going to go out there next week to see how it's going.
I think that's such a great example too of doing things better. Sometimes we feel like things have to completely be flipped on their heads, but there's also such a great opportunity to do these pilot projects to improve together. I think that's phenomenal. And then within my own space, so I've been working in the building sector for the past decade or so, and so I nerd out on anything buildings related. I did have one question for you with regards to the actual built infrastructure of Taco Bell, because you're also overseeing all the restaurants. How have you woven sustainability into those individual buildings? And I'm sure that's extra complex in that there are some that are maybe more franchises and then other franchisees and then others that are corporately owned. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I mentioned the roughly 8,000 restaurants. So we are 98% franchised.
Okay.
So we're predominantly franchise owned. And the restaurant side of the sustainability work is predominantly led by our architecture and design team. And then some of it is also managed by our operations team and facilities. So they work with Yum to really set what we call green building standards. And those standards are set so how we design and build our restaurants meet those specific standards. And then we have some franchisees who are, where they can, adding solar to their restaurants to offset energy usage. I'm sure like it's a little complicated of whether or not you own the restaurant or lease the restaurant. So and who gets savings. So there's some complexity to that. And then some of our franchisees are also adding EV charging stations to their restaurants as a way to offer that service to customers. And then we have some of our other ops departments who are working on energy management systems in the restaurant to help offset the energy usage. So there's a lot of collective work that's taking place that we're just trying to figure out what can we test and pilot so that we can scale across the system to find out, well, what was successful, is the ROI there to then take it across the system. But I think there's an opportunity to relook at how we build restaurants from the ground up. So as we build new restaurants, I think that's where they're looking at different opportunities of being more sustainable. So what my team has worked on specifically is we focus on our corporate office And last year, our corporate office, we got Green Business Network certified in the state of California. So essentially what that means is the Green Business Network certification recognizes businesses that meet high standards of social and environmental responsibility and transparency sustainability practices. So for us, we did things like in our dining center, we're now plastic free. And we're piloting reusable cups across the corporate office. And then there's other things that you don't really maybe take notice of that are less visible, but we have low flow faucets. We have LED lights everywhere. We have green cleaning supplies, and we're using recycled content, printing paper. What we've also done is we've formed what we're calling a Purple Planet team. So instead of being a green team, right, sustainability usually is green, and Taco Bell is known for being purple. So we formed a Purple Planet team because we like to be different and celebrate being different. So we have an internal Purple Planet team that has a group of people from every department, and they are our internal sustainability champions. And what they do is they set different activities, topics, and things to then act as and build sustainability stewards across the organization, recognize people for doing sustainable practices, recycling, and things like that. So it's pretty exciting to see how many people are interested, the ideas they come up with. It's stuff like this year we had a theme of water usage. Water is very important across the board, but especially in California.
Yeah.
And so we visited a water treatment plant, and we focused on just recycling water and how to limit your water usage. And so we picked different themes and then focus around that and celebrate that during Earth Month. And then